Welcome to Blue Monday with me, Les, Rodger, and Dave's back this week after an uneventful weekend. In the end, I think we thought it was all going to be quite a stressful weekend, but after the game got called off against Liverpool, I think we all just breezed through a lovely stress-free weekend. Is that how it went for you, gents?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good when Everton don't play these days, isn't it? So
it's always good when Everton don't lose. I think when we don't lose, because we didn't lose.
Yeah. That's an
thing.
Excellent point. Yeah,
I think Sean should take all the credit for that. To be fair,
yeah,
because I think we've been a bit too negative about Daichi.
Yeah,
and I think he deserves to take credit for not losing to Liverpool at the weekend.
No, I'm fully agreeing with that. Just got not to bring it down straight away, but I've just seen a little stat. Tottenham have kept just one clean sheet in their last 22 league home games. Well, there you go. Wonder who that could have been against. Anyway, before we get dragged down that rabbit hole, it feels like we've been very, very negative every week on this, and it's been hard not to, because we've not been playing particularly well. We've not been getting very good results. So I want to talk about something a little bit different today. But before we get into that, just looking at the weekend's game, it's obviously going to get rescheduled for the new year. Probably going to be after February, I think, because of the run of fixtures the Reds have got in particular. I think they've got League Cup, potentially Europe. So I think they've got I don't think they've got many free weeks up until the middle of Feb, maybe. I had a lot of Liverpool fans sort of saying, do you know what? It's not the worst thing in the world. It hit me how much they hate this fixture at the weekend. The way I heard some of them talking about it, they really don't like it because they've not got a particularly good record at Goodison. But they're saying, McAllister will be back in. They'll have Canate back for when it's replayed. They could be in a stronger position than they would have been going into this game. But I feel the same about Everton, really. Hopefully, the takeover gets done. We come through a reasonable January transfer window. So, Rodger, come to you first. Are you glad it got called off in a way? And do you think we could go into this game in better shape when it's rescheduled?
Well, yeah, we should be in better shape. You're right, because the ownership should be sorted. Although, next week, the week after, there's no problems. Until it's done, it's not actually done. Obviously, by then we will have had a full January transfer window, and whether there's money to spend or not, you'd like to think there'd be a bit of creative player trading to fill a few holes in that squad. And perhaps the threat of relegation will have subsided slightly because Southampton will have disappeared down a plug hole and maybe be followed by at least one other. I do still think there's at least one place up for grabs, and Leicester seem to be finding ways to pick up points. Ipswich seemed to be a bit unlucky yesterday, but we should be in better shape. Of course, we should be in better shape, and Liverpool can't be in better shape because they're right at the peak of it right now, for God's sake, even after shipping 3 at Newcastle. So they'd have probably come even more fired up Saturday if it had happened. So does it suit us? Does it not? The derby is always one off, and our challenge is always keeping 11 players on the pitch. So whether that's under the lights in February or on a windswept Saturday 12:30 kickoff, that's always the challenge for Everton, is keeping 11 players on the pitch and getting some decent officiating. I'd take a draw now. Of course I would. Wouldn't we all? How does this work for my 7-point prediction, by the way?
Oh, God, that's a good question. We'll just extrapolate it as we need to.
So I was going to say, you can. You're definitely not guaranteeing getting 1 point from the next 3 games. I'd put a few quid on that right now.
Yeah, my plan is that we nick a draw at City now and beat Forest for the 7. Because Chelsea will not be. Good grief, that's more scary than the derby on current form.
Yeah.
They look so good, don't they? They looked brilliant yesterday.
Yeah.
Really did.
I mean, well, yeah, they've interesting over the weekend as well. Just doing a few bits and pieces for our show. 32 goals in 8 games across the weekend, and we've still got West Ham against Wolves to go tonight, which
could easily be 4-4.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that it seems this time of year when you start getting ridiculously high scoring games, isn't it? And you question there about the derby, Les. I mean, where I completely agree with you. They absolutely despise this at Goodison. They hate it, despite the fact they've got a really good record. Well, I say really good record. They don't lose normally at Goodison. Typically a draw. If not, they'll win quite comfortably against us, certainly these days anyway, given the situation we're in. So yeah, I mean, it's a bit potluck to assume as well that they're going to have these players back when, like you said, they've got to run through a hectic run of fixtures before this will be reorganised into probably February, like you say. For us, yeah, I mean, like Rodger was talking about there, and I mean, you'd love to think that situations are sorted at boardroom level. I mean, the next three, it probably continues the narrative of our discussion about Sean Dyche's future to go and beat Wolves 4-0. And I hate the term, but I'm going to say it gives him a lot of credit in the bank. Having said that, if we go and get destroyed in the next 3 games, probably puts him in an even worse condition than he was pre-Wolves, I would say, despite the fact of who we're playing. The one that I think out of this list, I'm sure we mentioned it last week, was Chelsea at home. Chelsea at home look to have gone head and shoulders above everybody else to challenge the shite for the league. Maresca's doing a superb job there. I think I was editing in work his post-match interview yesterday, and I don't think I've heard a more calming manager when he's in right in the thick of things at a club like Chelsea, who are just a few seconds away from implosion. He's talking about the how big the squad is that he's got. He started talking about how he's asked about so many players, and he said, "Well, it's on merit. The other guys will get a game in the Europa Conference." And effectively, it's like we were compared in terms of let's rock up and see the reserves, see if there's any good players, and then put them in the first team. That equates to them as seeing them in a relatively half-assed European tournament. Then he sees that they're half decent, and then he'll put them on the bench when they come to the first side. So I've been really impressed about what he's done there, because immediately when you go in, I think they lost opening day. They lost 2 games. They lost on the opening day of the season, and you can see immediately at Chelsea. Yeah, I mean, you can see straight away fans will be all over the place with them, and that's just the way they are. But I think as well to look at it. Obviously, there's no comparison whatsoever to Everton, but you look at what they went and did with the manager, very much against the way in which Chelsea operate, going and getting a manager that has a lot of potential. Maybe they did it with Potter, but going and getting a manager from the Championship effectively was very un-Chelsea-like. But it is interesting to see they've gone down that road when we've spoken about who the runners and riders are should Sean Dyche get sacked as well. So yesterday's game was fantastic to watch, and again, interesting. The daggers are out for Ange Postecoglou as well, aren't they? 15 games into a season.
Yeah.
I mean, Spurs stats are rubbish. They've lost 19 of their last 40 Premier League games, for God's sake.
He got that one win at Man City, didn't he? That's what they're raving about.
Right.
The one win at City.
That's right. 4-0. I've got a take on Maresca, and I know you wanted to bring up Cole Palmer, which we might do later. I think the two are connected, because I think the sale of Palmer to, bizarrely, no one will believe me, but bizarrely, when Chelsea signed Palmer, I was saying to my lads and my mates, why don't we go and get someone like Cole Palmer on loan from City and tell them we'll give him a game all year round, And Chelsea just went and signed him. And I think that was the beginning of the end of the Guardiola era. Now there's a hot take for you, because it followed swiftly on Maresca, who would have been the natural successor to him, being allowed to go to Leicester. And that, there's a lot of talk about City and a lack of succession planning and no cover for Kyle Walker and no cover for Rodger, and these sorts of issues that they face. And their very, very, very best player, I mean, Cole Palmer is the best player I've seen, the best talent I've seen come through and perform consistently, maybe since Rooney, or is that too much to say?
No, I
don't think so.
I think he's 2 or 3 times the player Phil Foden is, because he does everything, and he scores and he passes and he creates and he takes penalties and he never misses. And how on earth did Manchester City, with all the talent and all the stats and all the resources, allow him to leave? That's unbelievable. And Chelsea are building a team around him. Maybe they got a bit lucky; they didn't realise he was quite that good. But combine him with Maresca, And there's other players City have let go. Lavia, I think, was Lavia not on their books?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And he's now at Chelsea. Boy, did he play well yesterday, by the way. No idea why he came off at half time. So, yeah, it's interesting. Chelsea are very dangerous. And if they keep playing like that, I think they'll give the Reds a real run for the money in the Premier League.
Yeah, Dave, the prospect of Cole Palmer running riot against our gang of crabs again is quite terrifying in a couple of weeks, isn't it?
Oh, God.
Well, it is if we start on the right-hand side and Mikalenko's playing. But the thing about this lad is, and I completely agree with Rodger there about the comparisons to Rooney when he burst on. Obviously, he's a bit older than him. He's 22.
Yeah.
You're raising well, maybe not raising eyebrows when Chelsea bang in £40 million offers here, there, and everywhere, because that's how much they got him for. Which at the time you think, wow, I didn't see that much of him. He played in a few of the lesser games for City. He wasn't getting Premier League games as such, maybe off the bench for 10, 15 minutes when they'd already taken the piss out of the opponents. But this lad, when I've seen him, has got everything about him. I mean, he when he talks, I'm not sure he knows what he's saying. When he talks, if you've seen his post-match interview after the game yesterday, the lad just looked like he just could not be asked whatsoever in answering a question. And Emma Saunders, who does the interview, I know quite well, and I was like, felt so sorry for her because he'd give like 2-word answers to every single thing. Yeah, it was just it was a good day. Yeah, when she asked him about taking the Panenka, he was like, I just knew the keeper was going to dive, so I just decided to do it. And honestly, it was probably akin to what interviews you see by Everton media when we've gone and lost 4-0. Do you know what I mean? And they ended up trying to get a positive spin out of Sean Dyche. I mean, this lad's got absolutely everything. I love watching him. I love with Maresca, and Rodger's right there as well, where they come in a tandem basically, because the way in which he can play him. Obviously, there's thought behind it whatever opponents they've got, where in which they'll start him, because he can play anywhere, literally anywhere across that, maybe a front four. He chases back. The goal they end up setting up there for Enzo Fernandez at the end. I mean, it's all about him tucking inside, skins 2 of them. Yeah, he has a shot to flex to him on, but that when you see players doing that against decent Premier League sides. I know we've spoken about how Spurs look like mugs at the moment, but you're seeing him do that against the best sides there, And he's the other thing as well is with England. I mean, I'm not sure. Obviously, we're not sure what goes on with that, but he should be the first name on the team sheet, that lad. And yeah, I'm petrified when we play Chelsea that he's going to run us riot, regardless of who he comes up against. It's encouraging. You don't see talent just. Going back to what Rodger said about the Rooney comparison, you don't see talent like that often at all, and I think he's got everything. He's. I think the only thing that goes against him. I've said this about players who really burst onto the scene in the past, where you think, do you know what? If you were watching him on a game like the kids do these days on FIFA or whatever, what position they'd actually put next to him as to where he actually plays, because you could put left winger, right winger, centre forward, 10. You can do all that with them. And our poor fella Sean Dyche there, he'd be doing his homework on the night before the game, thinking, who am I going to put up against him? He's not great at that anyway. So when he's up against Cole Palmer, I'm not too sure who he's telling to run after him.
Well, and obviously we're going to have the half an hour hat-trick in our heads, aren't we, as well? He scored a hat-trick, obviously, down at Stamford Bridge. He scored a hat-trick within 29 minutes and then got his 4th in the second half. It's quite a worrying prospect. He just looks like one of those players who just enjoys what he's doing. He just enjoys playing football. And like you said, Dave, he clearly can't be bothered with the other side of things, like the interviews and things like that. He just wants to play football. Yeah, which is exactly what Rooney was like, sort of when, like you say, 6 years his junior, like Rooney was 16 when he was doing all this. But it is very similar in that regard. I don't think it's too much to say that he's got the potential at least to be as big a talent as Rooney, because he does look very similar, doesn't he? In the way he approaches the game, he just enjoys it. He's not fazed by anything, like that Panenka showed yesterday. It was 3-2 in a proper derby match as well, because that is a proper London derby where both sides really hate each other. There's usually about 7 or 8 send-ins off, I think, in that game. So to do that at 3-2 when it's really still in the balance, and to take that penalty like that, it shows some plums and some confidence, doesn't it?
I just wish he'd stop with that stupid celebration. He's doing that. Like, just stop it, mate. You know what I mean? Just, go and slide on your knees like everyone else does.
I love it when he gets the ball on the half turn, sort of in the centre circle, and the entire defence in front of him seems to just open up. Everyone runs away.
Yeah.
He just has this ability to so quickly get the ball under control, to look up, push it forward, and he's running forward with the ball under control, and the defence is just, what on earth are we going to do with him now? And he's got so many options. He passes it accurately, invariably along the ground. He doesn't do the whole, Trent Alexander 90-yard diag straight onto someone's chest, but he passes it so beautifully with such accuracy and pace. He's absolutely one, and he's a left footer, and they're always more elegant to watch left footed.
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
without a doubt. Right, let's move on to the main bit.
Not raving a player from another team.
No, let's not do that anymore. So basically what I thought for this week was, as we had no match at the weekend and there's nothing really to moan or talk about, I thought we'd look at our favourite derby matches, because we do have a few of them, I think, over the years between us. So we asked you to pick 3 each, so we'll just do one each and go through like that. Rodger, what's your first one?
FA Cup 5th round replay, 4-4, February 1991. Behind 4 times, came back 4 times. I was sat in my season ticket at the time was in the main stand at the edge of the Gladys Street penalty area, and never seen a game like it. It was absolutely phenomenal, and it was more than one game, because obviously we went on to win the second replay 1-0, took us into the 6th round. It was the end of Kenny Dalglish, which was no bad thing for us Blues. And then, ironically, I hadn't appreciated this until later when I did a piece with Pat Nevitt. They went down to West Ham in the 6th round and got beat 2-1, I think. And the story is that Howard was pissed, properly pissed, and gave them like duff instructions, and there was a kind of revolt in the dressing room at half time. But this was very, very early Sky B squarial type days. And I remember it was during the Cheltenham Festival, because I was down at the Cheltenham Festival, and we lost 2-1 on a Monday night to West Ham. And it was we just played appallingly for some reason, having knocked Liverpool out of the FA Cup into the 6th round. West Ham, come on, let's go and do it. And there was a problem with the manager, apparently, and a bit of revolution in the dressing room. But before that was I think it was the greatest Merseyside derby I'd ever witnessed. That 4-4.
It was incredible, wasn't it? Cotty came off the bench, didn't he?
Yeah, Cotty came off the bench and got 2. Yep. Go on.
No, I just remember, like, it feels like every one of Liverpool's goals was an absolute worldie. All ours was sort of like scuffed in and that, but hey, they all count, don't they? But that was a very, very good Liverpool side as well. That.
Of course it was. Barnes was there in his pomp. And I think Beardsley was still playing for them. Yes.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic game. Dave Watson got the winner in the second replay the following week, because they tossed a coin and we won and played a totally different game, 1-0 versus 4-4. But yeah, that's my best. That's the top of the charts for me. Yeah,
that is a great shout, and it's weird to think, isn't it, the fact that we used to have like 2 replays for a cup game.
Sometimes you'd have more. Sometimes you'd have more.
Classic, that, He did it in finals as well, didn't he? Back in the day, you still know more about that than me.
Yes, they did. Tottenham QPR went to a replay. Man United Palace went to a replay. Tottenham Man City went to a replay. That famous Ricky Villa goal is an FA Cup final.
Ricky Villa,
yeah.
It's that time of year to be watching that in January, isn't it? On Match of the Day as it used to be, you'd always see that in the intro. You'd always say Ricky Villa, and Motson's commentary on that. It's still Ricky Villa, and he a ridiculous goal he scored. You'd probably see that from Cole Palmer against us.
Well, another derby, the League Cup final '84 went to a replay, didn't it? At Main Road when they beat us. Didn't Souness score a worldie?
Sort of half volley in the bit of a muddy pitch.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from that one. Dave, what's your first choice?
First one, I mean, top of my list, but I think it's one that's too common. It was Kanchelskis when he ripped them apart at Anfield, which is, I think it was we've only won twice since then, and one of them was in COVID at Anfield. Obviously, it was '99 with Super Kev. that was being in the away end for that as a kid was just ridiculous. Realizing away games and what it means, and also the amount of shit that you hear from all around you was just like absolute magic at that age. But the one I'm going to go for is actually a draw, controversially. We drew 1-1 there, and it was when they were top of the league, I think, and it would have been 2008, where Tim Cahill scores in the last minute. Arteta whips across. I don't think he did it well, but he absolutely whips across him from post, and Cahill just leans down, nods it past Reina, and we should have gone on to win that game because big Anachibi, in about 2 minutes later, gets the ball, and you've got Cahill sprinting ahead of him. You just got one centre back at the time. And probably in Anachibi style, just kicked it at their player who put it out to play, and we didn't get the winner. But you know when you just get those moments where, regardless of the result, the crowd you're with just don't give a shit really, and just go that absolutely crazy about it. And in that game, it was the season we had that yellow away kit, the yellow, bright yellow away kit.
Oh yeah.
We obviously didn't win the derby, but I was wearing it when I went to the game, and I think you can see me on the telly as well, which I was buzzing with. But when you just grab whoever's next to you and just end up like throwing them in the air and stuff like that, it was just a moment like that. I remember Everton doing something at Anfield, which sadly, I'm sat here raving. If any Reds go and watch this, raving that we probably cost them the league as we were celebrating last season.
Do you know what? I'll take it all day, definitely.
Oh, I'd say we don't scream a draw against them whenever we get to play them. Absolutely.
There's nothing quite like the celebration when you score there either, is there?
Oh,
especially when it still means something, like not when you're like 4-0 down or something, but when it means something to score there, it's like,
Sigurdsson goal, mate. Sigurdsson there.
I've never known anything like that.
No. Sigurdsson, and when Rooney scored the
Rooney's penalty at the away end. Yeah.
That was with anger, that as well. When you see him hit that, he'd never scored there, had he? I think he scored for United once, but he never scored there for us. And I've never seen a ball hit that hard, probably from 12 yards. Public went through and snapped someone in Rose Ed or something like that. He batters it past Mignolet. And when he runs over, there's he's just screaming all sorts of people. But it's like I was scared of him like passing out because he was just that emotional from scoring that goal against those bastards. And the better thing about that was I still don't think it was a penalty either when Calvert-Lewin goes over.
Yeah.
Lovren just flicks him and he goes over.
I mean, is that also the one that Holgate shoves? Is that the game that Holgate shoves Bobby Firmino into the crowd?
That's right. Yeah, that's
the same one. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
I love that.
Calvert-Lewin looks about 12 because he hasn't gained a muscle. He hasn't grown a muscle whatsoever. So
Wasn't
might say
like
better then.
Wasn't that like our second penalty there in 80 years as well?
I think it was.
Stupid like that, wasn't it? It was mad.
Yeah.
My choice is 93, 94. This was the first derby I ever went to. So the start of that season, Everton were top after 3 games. We beat Sheffield United 4-2 at home. I think it was 2-1 with about 2 minutes to go, and we got 2 late goals, or something like that. Anyway, yeah. So we beat Sheffield United, went top, and then Liverpool played Swindon on the Sunday, battered them 5-0, and then the two teams kind of just went like that. We went down, and they just sort of stayed up there. But that derby, it was a lovely sunny day. I was stood in the Gladys Street, and it was the one where McManaman and Grobbelaar had the fight when Mark Ward scored. So the corner comes in, McManaman does a half-arse clearance, and then I was sort of right in line with Mark Ward when he hit it, and he just leathered it through the crowd, and it was just bedlam. And then just as we were sort of settling down, we saw them two sort of having a go at each other. And we were just like, me and mates just saying to each other, and we just thought, yeah, do you know what, we've got this, which is a very, very unusual feeling at a derby. And then with about, I think it was in the last minute, Tony Cottee, I think he took like 2 players on in the box and then just scuffed it past Grobbelaar for the second to really sort of calm our nerves. And that was when it doesn't happen often again, does it? But when that second goal goes in late on, you think, right, this is it. A bit like last season, to be honest, at Goodison, when that second one went in, you thought, right, that's it, we're done now. We've got this game. It was like that. And it's probably not one that many people remember too much, but I think because it was my first one, it was pretty special, that one. So that was my first choice. Enjoyed that one.
We need some honourable mentions for Cadamartri, Neil Ruddock. That was a great one, wasn't it? I remember I was on front row of the Bullens on that, and it was a roasting hot day as well, if you remember it. And who was it? Bjorn Torn Kavami.
Got skinned.
Cadamartri with the dreadlocks just runs past him. Really, I remember he looked like we talk about Rooney. It's a common theme, isn't it, on today's show? We talk about Rooney, we talk about Cole Palmer. Cadamartri came onto the scene. I thought, wow, how good's this lad? He's going to be better than Pele. And,
that's what it did look like. He had it all.
It's death quite early, didn't it?
Yeah, but I mean that one in itself, that was a massive result that season, wasn't it? You know, we don't beat them, we go down. So every point we scraped that season was vital. Yeah. So to get 3 against them. Rodger, have you got another one?
Yeah, I've got the one after you've just said. So this is November 94. So 94-5 the following season. Sorry, right. So
no, it's all right. We'll go into this one. Yeah, good stuff.
It's Joe Royal's first game in charge. The ill-fated Mike Walker has left us, and we're about to embark on a golden era under Joe Royal, winning trophies, competing in Europe, and then falling out with the chairman because he won't spend the money on Torre Andre Flo. You know, the corner from Hinchcliffe, who Palomine was a mate of, and you know, this long story that I've told about the FA Cup final party that we gate crashed. It was because my mate was Andy Hinchcliffe's financial advisor, so we were a big fan of Hinchcliffe at the time. No longer with his stupid punditry, but great corner from him and the Gladys, and I don't think you'll ever see a better header from Ferguson than that one. You know, he sort of hangs in the air, and as he's looking at the ball, and he twists his head brilliantly in order to angle the header precisely where he wants it to go. And we won 2-0 and never looked back and went on to glory. That was a Goodison goal from a header from the number 9 at the Gladys Street end against the Red Shine. You know, if you don't like that, I don't think this football club is for you, really.
Yeah.
It was another one as well, wasn't it, where we got that late goal to settle the nerves, right? So I think Ferguson nodded it down to Rideout, who sort of slid in.
Rideout slides in, on the half volley and sort of pulls it back with his right foot. Very, very ungainly, like quite a lot of Rideout's goals, even the cup-winning goals, a bit sort of it's a bit awkward, but he scored and he's a hero and always will be. But he got the second again at the Gladys Street end. Yeah.
Do you remember? I was just going to say about I was devastated doing this because the videos we were going to put online, they're very tight with it these days, as you'll know, with YouTube, Les. And I put a video together comparing the two when McNeil puts that in for Calvert-Lewin, because if you watch them, they're really, really, albeit the Calvert-Lewin at the back post, the ball's in like pretty close to it between Hinchcliffe and McNeil putting that in. To make it 2-0 as well. It just like the comparison like that. I was like, oh, do you know what? It's the kind of thing we just think, the similarities between years, needing it to stay up. Unfortunately, that's been the main occasions when we've got a result against them, hasn't it? In being the last few decades. But I think having a load of their mates, we mentioned it last week about everyone's got somebody in the family or the black sheep or whatever, who's a red that no one really likes. I think those sorts of things we've mentioned there in the last 15 minutes are exactly the reason why they hate coming to Goodison, because they effectively, invariably, all start saying their players have absolutely shit themselves, and that's what pleases me more than anything else, really, knowing that they've absolutely bottled. I remember David James going there. You could almost see him visibly shaking when he was up against Big Dunk. Because I think David James is probably taller than him. But he was just shitting one in case Dunk just ran in and gave him one in the ribs, where you were allowed to do back in the day. And there were a few players like that. And you looked at him and thought, a player like Duncan Ferguson back in the, I think he said it at various events, where you think, do you know what? If I put myself through this bastard, he's just going to fall apart in this game. And, we did that a lot against them when you were allowed to, which sadly you can't do that these days.
Yeah, as I said there, this was going to be my second choice as well, because it was just an unbelievable game. I think the best thing for me was they were entering their Spice Boys period there, weren't they? And
That's
they
right.
were so full of themselves. They had a really good
The
start.
cream kiss and all that.
Yeah, we had a hideous start to that season, as is well documented. We were on 7 points at this point, and it was the 21st of November this was, and we were on 7 points. We just sort of turned the corner form-wise, which Mike Walker was keen to point out to everyone when he got sacked, as we beat West Ham and then drew against Norwich. But we were wretched. But they were so full of themselves before this game. They were going to leather us in every kind of way you can imagine in this game. I wasn't confident at all. I love the fact that we got Joe Royle and we should have got him in 4 years early when Kendall came back. I think that was a massive mistake from the club. So it was great to see Joe Royle in, but no one could have known the impact he would have had. And it started off in that game. The atmosphere was brilliant. It was nervous at first, I think, because obviously, it was a derby and the position both teams were in. But yeah, it was just incredible. And as Rodger said, when that header went in, it was bedlam because it was the perfect Everton goal. Just looking at the stats here as well, after 7 points from our first, however many games, 11 games or something like that, we then beat Liverpool at home, beat Chelsea away, and then beat Leeds at home, drew away at Villa, drew away at Tottenham, and our next run of 5 games. So that was the impact Joe Royle had, and I think it's just one of the biggest sort of sadnesses of the club for me, the way it ended with him and the way everything fell apart so quickly after that. But yeah, that was a wonderful game. Right, so we've got time for one more each, boys. You got another one, Rog?
I think it has to be the '89 Cup final, really, because that whilst we lost, it was such an emotional day for both sets of fans, and actually, it's the only time that I was sat amongst Cop-Ites for that game, which was a bit unfortunate, but never mind. It was genuinely friendly at a time where it had been quite unfriendly. I mean, particularly unfriendly, obviously post Heysel and things. And it was just, it was kind of an honour to be there, and it was an honour to be the opponent. And of course, we did our dutiful thing and rolled over. But there was something historic about that, rather than it being, we beat them. And I was going to say the one that Jags scored the screamer at the Cop end, because to snatch anything from the jaws of nothing against them is also a real high. But I would probably go with that. I'd go with that '89 Cup final and Stuart McCall and his 2 goals, and Ian Rush came off the bench and scored 2 for them. Did he not?
Awesome.
The most boring 90 minutes, and then the most bonkers extra time. That second goal from McCall in particular was a stunner, wasn't it? Yeah,
don't really see that enough, I think, because of the context of it and the fact that it was a consolation effectively, although it was an equaliser. It was a great goal.
And everyone was on the pitch, of course, because the fences had come down. That was fences had been up still, right? And that was the first time that the fences came down at Wembley, at the old Wembley. It was a great day. Well, it wasn't a great day because we lost, but it was it was a day. It was a day to be a part of. A bit like when we've always marked the Hillsborough. I remember very much when it wasn't a derby. I think it was a game against Newcastle. But when the boy and girl came out with the red and blue shirts on with the 9 and 6 before it was 97. He ain't heavy. He's my brother and all of that. So that would be mine. Sorry, a bit too emotional about that, but it was a good one.
The thing about that is, obviously the social side to our city. You think about that song, you think about the coming together of Everton, Liverpool with these things. And it was the Merseyside chant as well, Merseyside as well, that always got me. That side of things with them, and I believe it's credit to Bill for sorting that out, isn't it? When the 2 kids came on,
totally.
Because if you think at the time as well, I remember covering it when I was at Radio City when in the Anglican Cathedral they released the report. And in front of the families and stuff was, I'll never forget to this day, but talking to Andy Burnham when we came out, and It's the kind of thing. Obviously, I wasn't around then. It was 2 years before I was born, and obviously Heisel before that as well. I know that a lot of people don't like talking about the comparison, the tragedy that came up in both of those on both of those occasions. But I tell you what, I mean, if there was ever an education that I got on what happened with Hillsborough and how Everton came, me being a Blue, sort of covering that as well, it was. It made me feel proud of where we're from, to be honest with you. And I know you see all sorts of shit these days, don't you? But you think of genuine fans of our genuine two clubs there, and what you said there, Rodger, about that 9 and 6 with those two, that was incredible. That against Newcastle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
it was.
The thing is as well, everyone knows people. Got relatives, got mates who were affected by it, directly or indirectly. And the other thing is as well, it was the toss of a coin. That could have been us. It's like it was, it was a semi-final. It was an open draw. It could have been either one of our teams. Yeah. And I think that's the thing people need to remember. If anyone's ever thinking about giving them shit over that, which is just inexplicable for me, I just don't get it. Just look at what you're doing. Just think about what you're saying there, because it could be anyone that, and it was just. Regardless of what happened on the day as well, the stuff that happened afterwards as well, which was an absolute disgrace, and they really
to this day,
yeah,
Les,
it is,
and it's outrageous, as we all know.
And the fact that they did eventually sort of fight for that to get that on the record, that it wasn't like it was down to the police, it was down to the organisation of it. That is full credit to them. Like,
it's interesting you say that, because obviously all of that is lost within Merseyside derbies. In conventional footballing way, I'd love it to stay like that, when you aspire each other based purely on the footballing matters between each other. And I think what I do think is quite poignant between both clubs is when it comes to the things that matter in life. Someone said to me once that. Football is the most important of the unimportant things, and that is epitomised by what happened there with Hillsborough. And you remember talking to players like Rush, Dalglish, when they all had to go there and visit families, at Aldridge as well, where they had to go around and visit the families. Obviously lost tragedy and stuff, lost loved ones and things, and put football in significance, really, because the occasion was there because of football. So a lot of people haven't even gone back to games since then, and it's I know it's a sour note for us to talk about, but yeah, I mean, I think in regards to Merseyside derbies, that needs to be remembered a lot more so, particularly by younger fans these days, who they'll only really hear a gang of dickheads talking about those things and stuff about actual lives. They'll just do it willy-nilly, which there probably should be more of an education put towards those with something as tragic as that.
I think with the rivalry thing as well, you just get some people they'll just say anything to get a rise out the other lot.
Oh yeah. It's like the Man United thing with Liverpool as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really. I mean, would never aim to compare one another, what's worse, but that happens a lot too every game, doesn't it? Liverpool away there, United coming here. It's just it's you almost feel ashamed, like, not personally, not with you guys obviously, but you I've not, maybe the wrong term to say this, but I've felt almost ashamed to be loving football as a sport in itself when you see that shit from the abuse people give one another, because you'd effectively support a different football club, in particular with ours. Any Evertonians go at Liverpool fans for those incidents that happened, those tragedies that happened. Don't ever want to see them again in my life. They shouldn't be in a football stadium, and I'll always call them out, with people around them.
And I think just to before we move on from this, I think one thing that sort of rivalry and tribal nature of everything does really undermine is that there'll never be any collective action in football. So it's really difficult. I know the 20s plenty campaign and things like that, have done well and that got off the ground. But I think football fans are on a bit of a hiding to nothing, because they won't back each other too often.
Yeah.
We're looking at the season ticket prices for next season at the ground. I think we all appreciate, those prices are fair enough, but at the end of the day, it's still too expensive. Those tickets next year, they're too expensive. The tickets this year, they're too expensive. And ours are not even amongst the most expensive in the country at the minute. And I think that's something that football as a whole probably needs to sort out, because it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
Ticket prices are only going to get higher. Prices of food and drink at the game are only going to get higher at a time when everything else is getting higher. But the tribal nature of football, and clubs know this and they play on this cynically, the tribal nature means that they'll just take the piss out of each other. You'll just get West Ham fans saying, well, it's this expensive. And you're down in London, bollocks to you, don't care. And there's no collective action. And it's really difficult to do that, which is quite sad, really, because football fans could be a powerful force to change things. But anyway.
Well, so you mentioned there, Les, you mentioned about the 20 is plenty. I mean, it still went to 30 quid, didn't it? It was 30 quid.
To be fair.
I mean, and I spoke to Dave Kelly a lot, who's heavily involved in this, particularly with Everton, obviously. And he was saying, I think he said at the time something along the lines of, this is not verbatim, that, that won't last long. I'm very, very dubious about how this will not go too far. You know what I mean? I just don't have a belief that that's going to stick, because as you mentioned, the tribal side of things, I think, you've just got the FA and people in and around those clubs who decide what prices are. They're invariably thinking that we're all thick. I think, do it for this long and everyone will forget about it. And then you start throwing it up a few quid more and a few quid more. And then people, they got us all to ransom, because people, us as Blues, you're going to want to go to every single game you possibly can. And many fans will still do so. And you can't fault anybody for wanting to do that, regardless of how much they're willing to pay. If they can afford it, then, fair play to them to go. But that side of things for them means that if they know the attendances are still hitting what they need to hit, then it's never going to change. And, it's interesting when you're just going on a tangent about this, when Liverpool did the walkout as well. More than happy to support that. I'd love to see that everywhere. When they walked out with Spirit of Shankly, that was spot on what they did. And then you saw that, I remember that day when it wasn't as many as you thought walked out. And for many a reason, it was because it was going against the club that was on the pitch, which I think it's pretty. There's idiocy behind that, isn't there? Thinking, you know what, I'm not moving here because Liverpool are playing, blah, blah, blah. Well, you won't be affording to go to Liverpool much longer if they keep on raising the prices, in which they do every season. And that is why, just finally on the new stadium prices, in comparison to everybody else, I looked at it as soon as it came out. I was like, do you know what? I'm quite impressed what the club's done there. I think that, it's only a couple of £100 more. You spread that out like many people do over the direct debit, and it works out as a few quid more than what we're at. But because you're in this little bubble of, it's a brand new stadium, you're still going to watch Everton, who are probably still going to be a pile of shite. But you're paying more to go and do so in a lovely brand new stadium. And I just think, it's almost like you mentioned there with the Castore coming in. And I went to see the club at the Royal Liver buildings when they were just before they released the kits, and they put both in front of us. The pro version, and the replica. And they're saying to me, and rightly so, because obviously it's certain people in the club need this to be approved, and everybody needs to come out and say these are great, we love them, blah blah blah. But the people have to try and sell that to others, I feel sorry for at the club, mentioning no names. But when they did that, it was like, look at them, can you tell the difference between the two of them? And I was like, no, I can't tell the difference from, like, I don't know, a couple of feet out. And they were like, see, that's why it shows you the replica one is just as good as the pro one. And then I sat there thinking, hang on, shouldn't they be saying that the pro one looks much better than the replica one?
That should be the sell, shouldn't it, really?
And I know I've gone off on a tangent there, but it just shows you, and that's 120 quid. And then they started saying that's much better than the clubs in London who sell for more than that. Well, that shows you in a nutshell how these things just escalate every single year. And then
Well, this
remember the days when we had you changed, you kept your 2 kits for 2 seasons.
yeah.
Look at that. But when did
Well,
that end? What year did that end?
I think it was late 2000s, I think, wasn't it, that? And then you get 3 kits a season eventually. But I just quickly on that then, I think the football kit is a great shout. That's something that everyone should mobilise against because, you know, you're looking at over a ton for a kids kit. That's outrageous for anyone. And also this creeping trend of getting rid of concessions at the ground as well. So I think Spurs have done it. Have West Ham done it? Or we're being a bit unfair there.
That wouldn't
Well,
surprise you.
United just have, haven't they? Minimum charge
Yeah.
for a Man United game, £66, no concessions.
No
Ridiculous. Way. And this is the sort of thing that every fan should be mobilising against, like collectively, to the point where if everyone's got to walk out of the game or something, or just leave the seats, go down to concourse, every Premier League game one weekend, do that. But it will never happen. And people won't boycott games because there's always someone to come in and take the ticket. And that's the thing. That's why they got us by the plums.
Well, it's like when we got to a waiting list level, because we went years without having a waiting list. Remember waiting list? Again, something else the Reds to take the piss out of. What? We've got a waiting list. How's that happened? But now, obviously, many of those will get a season ticket because obviously we're up in the amount of people that's going to get a season ticket when we go to Bramley-Moore. Even that is why clubs have you at a ransom because they know, and this is where you do owe Everton some credit, I think, when those prices came out. That could have been a lot more, and because they know they're going to get the numbers in there when people are sitting there waiting in a list to be given the nod to go and get a season ticket. There's always somebody else, like you say, who's willing to pay a few quid more. And again, the size of our club compared to many others, again, others would take the piss given how Everton have been over the years gone by and what we always talk about there. But it makes you still fully appreciate when you take a step back how big our club actually is still when you've got a waiting list to go to a 52,000 seater stadium, and they've got a waiting list when we've been so poor for so many years. You give credit to those people, but at the same time, the opposite of that is the club will be sitting there rubbing their hands together.
Yeah. Just want to end on one more derby match. Have you got another one, Dave? Or?
Well, I just wanted to, not a derby, but I just wanted to ask this randomly. Rodger, you might well have come across this.
All right, no pressure.
So, has anybody actually ever spoken to Mike Walker after he fucked off at Everton? Has anybody interviewed him? Has he ever been seen talking about Everton? As you recall, has there ever been anything Mike Walker's referred to with Everton? Because I've never seen a thing that he's ever spoken about.
Like I alluded to before, the only thing's the immediate aftermath when he said, I thought we turned the corner. And that's the last thing I ever remember hearing about him. I don't know about you, Rog.
I think the last thing I haven't heard him or seen him interviewed since he left in '94. But I'm sure I saw that he's in, I don't know, maybe Spain or somewhere. He lives. It's a little bit like David O'Leary. Has anybody ever seen him?
Yeah. Great point.
I mean, since
I've got his number here. Actually, I might drop him a message, see if he wants to come on.
Give him a bell. You know, since he nearly took Leeds to, you know, they lost was it a European Cup semi-final to Rangers? They lost it. You know,
promising young manager at the point, though, wasn't he? He looked like he was going places.
Absolutely. And did he go to Villa for a little period of time after Leeds? Yeah. Did he?
I just used to like the way he used to speak, though, Rodger. The way he used to speak was very calm guy. And, you know, like, I don't ever do anything wrong kind of thing. I think we're playing really well because that Leeds side looked like they go and conquer everything. Really young players, when you know, like Alan Smith and Kuhl and all that.
Rio Ferdinand.
Yeah, exactly. He paid 30 million for Rio Ferdinand, like, which is, you know, ridiculous amount back in that time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No, I haven't seen anything. I mean, he never took another job, Mike Walker, as far as I can tell. People will be frantically Wikipediaing or whatever they do, but no, really, really bizarre because, you know, he just broke the mold with Norwich. I remember. Well, you may or may not remember fax machines, but I remember when we appointed him, I sent a fax from where I was working at the time. Pathetic. I mean, what we do is absolutely pathetic. I sent a fax to Norwich City from I was working for Reuters in Manchester at the time. And I sent a fax saying, congratulations, Mr. Walker. Can you please bring Chris Sutton with you? Chris Sutton was the number 9. Obviously, he went to Blackburn around the same time as obviously Shearer and Sutton. That was around the time we bid 12 million for Shearer when they'd already accepted 15. That was the classic. Yeah, no, never heard sight nor sound of him, and he never replied to my fax message, and he never brought Chris Sutton
that's
with
it,
him.
mate. You'd think he'd want to give out on his side, wouldn't you? I mean, I suppose fair play to the fella for just sort of vanishing and. Yeah, don't want to talk about that anymore.
We're very good at non-disclosure agreements, Everton. Apparently, allegedly. I wouldn't like to say that.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're in trouble with another one if you don't say that allegedly.
Otherwise, I'll be in a headlock or something before long.
He took the money, legged it to Marbella, and he's just lived in a single pair of Speedos since. That would be classic Mike Walker. That.
Well, that's what we'd all do if we fucked our jobs up, eh?
Oh God, 100%. Just want to finish on this one then. So I've got a special mention for the 86 game at Anfield, where Kevin Ratcliffe scored that wonder strike-ish that squirmed under Grobbelaar, purely because I was listening to that in a pub in Benidorm. I was on holiday with my mum and dad, days before televised games. My dad dragged us around loads of bars to try and find one with a radio that had the game on, and we listened to it there. But I can't end this without mentioning the 3-0, the Andy Johnson game.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely incredible day. I don't think...
Blistering hot day as well, that one.
It always loved. I don't think we've witnessed one like that. Before. Or really, it was a proper break the mold Merseyside derby. Got and Andy Johnson was so close to getting a hat trick there, wasn't he? When you think that first goal that Kale swept in, Andy Johnson was just behind him. And Kale picked the ball for that first one. That
was a side that time where you thought Everton, as we did many times under Moyes in those years, you're thinking, this is where we go here now. We have Beattie still there as well, and you're thinking we've got a squad here.
We didn't lose until October that year. We got beat at Middlesbrough away. Then we won our next 2 games. And then we went on we had a bit of a ropey November, December, but yeah, it was a cracking side, and that was just a really, really dominant derby display that I don't think any of us have ever seen.
I love the final header where the keeper tries to sort of claim it's somehow a foul. Something's not right about this. I've just thrown it up in the air and it's hit the bar and he's headed it in and there's something wrong with it. There was nothing wrong with it at all. It was a great goal. Was that Vesterveld or Rayner? Was it Vesterveld?
Rayner.
It was Rayner, was it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was Rayner.
It should have been a penalty, really. We didn't score. It was a penalty. He was like slapped.
He grabbed his head, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Like just both hands around him. It's like a headlock.
Can we do a shout out for the Franny Jeffers fight? That was with Vesterveld, wasn't it? At Anfield. Franny Jeffers against Vesterveld.
Yeah, that was the Campbell derby.
That wasn't when Steve Staunton ended up in goal.
Yeah, he made a great save as well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, was that a draw? Was that when we won? Was that a draw or when we won? 1-0. Kev? Yeah.
That was the Super Kevin a scramble.
Yeah. There we go. Hopefully that's been a more upbeat one for people, aside from the usual.
Get in touch with Mike Walker. Get in touch with Mike Walker.
Yeah, if anyone's heard from Mike Walker, or if Mike Walker's listening, might be a big fan of the Blue Room. Who knows? Let us know.
Give his Ian a shout. So we can get him on.
Yeah, that's a really good shout though. The fact that there's never been any interviews in that, because it would be interesting to hear. Because again, the club at the time was a basket case. It was not in good shape at all. That would be.
Trying to say it wasn't his fault, Les?
It definitely was his fault. Definitely was. He had a good side there. To be fair, that was a good team. As Joe Real proved. Right. Thanks as ever, Rog. Thanks, Dave. Thanks to everyone for listening. That's been Blue Monday. We'll be back with all the usual caper this week, leading up to Arsenal away on Saturday, I think, which is definitely one to look forward to. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for listening. Up the toffees.